Hello again, welcome back to Asgard, and welcome to a quick tutorial for the mod Malum. First up, Malum does feature in-game documentation in the form of the Encyclopedia Arcana. If you open this up, you're going to have a few different tabs that you can click through, and if you see an arrow like this, you can move over to the next page, and it basically just covers all the different items and mechanics within the mod. Now, to get started with the mod, you're going to need to find two things. First up, you need to find Runewood, which you're going to see these orange patches that spawn in the world. These are the sun-kissed patches, and the tree here is going to be Runewood. You can harvest this. You can also get saplings from it. And a couple things to note, if you're going to grow the sapling, it will create a sun-kissed patch, just like that. So just be aware that it will change your dirt. Also, you can strip Runewood logs, and if you do, there's a chance that you're going to come across a sap-filled Runewood log. And then if you take a bottle and use right-click, you're going to get a bottle of solar sap. Solar sap can be combined with a slime ball to get 3 solar sap balls, which can be used just like slime balls. And you can also smelt it to get solar syrup bottle. And if you drink the solar syrup, it's going to give you, in addition to being a food, it also gives you some regeneration and instant healing. Runewood can also be smelted to get arcane charcoal, which basically allows for smelting of 32 items. And it can be broken down into 8 fragments, which each fragment can smelt 4 items. And on that same note, you can also break down coal when you have Malum installed to get 8 coal fragments, each of which smelt 1 item. Also worth noting, Runewood can be used to create a variety of decorative blocks. I'm not going to go over all of them. Of course, you can check in JEI for those. The other thing that you're going to need to get started with Malum is soulstone ore. This is going to be fairly common as you're mining. And you won't need a ton of this to get started. And once you mine it, you're just going to put it in a furnace and smelt it to get soulstones. And also with Malum installed, when you're in the nether, you can come across blazing quartz ore. If you mine it, it's going to drop blazing quartz, which can be impacted by fortune. You can also silk touch it and then just smelt the ore for a single blazing quartz. And blazing quartz, aside from a few special recipes with spirit infusion and Rune Table, you can use that to make netherrack. You can also break it down to smelt 2 items or use it in whole to smelt 16. Now, once you have your Runewood and your soulstone, you can get started with the mod proper. The first 2 things that you're going to want to make are going to be a spirit altar and a crude scythe. The spirit altar is going to basically just be like your initial crafting table for the mod's items, and the crude scythe is going to give you access to a special resource within Malum called spirits. And with the crude scythe, if we were to kill something with the scythe equipped, you can see it drops these spirits. You have to run over them to pick them up, and you can see that from killing that cow, I got 2 sacred spirits and an earthen spirit. Now, there's a wide variety of places where spirits can come from. I'm not going to cover every single mob and what all spirits they drop, because there's a lot of overlap. For example, the cow dropped earthen and sacred. But a general rule of thumb is wicked spirits are going to come from undead. So for example, if we were to kill a zombie, you can see that he dropped an earthen spirit and he dropped a wicked spirit there. Aquatic spirits are going to come from aquatic creatures. So think squid, fish, that sort of thing. Guardians. Sacred spirits are going to come from generally farm animals. Aerial spirits are going to come from flying creatures, so phantoms, bats, that sort of stuff. Infernal spirits are going to come from nether-based mobs, so blazes, zombie pigmen. Earthen spirits are fairly common. You can get those from zombies, from cows, just a wide variety of mobs in the overworld. Arcane spirits come from anything related to magic, so skeletons are created through magic, witches use magic. So they'll both drop arcane spirits. And eldritch spirits relate to the end, so endermen, endermites, shulkers are all going to drop eldritch spirits. And you'll need a bunch of spirits as you progress, even more so if you plan on building with the decorative blocks or anything like that. So be prepared for a lot of spirit grinding, but there is ways later on to increase the amount of spirits that you get and to make your spirit collecting a whole lot easier. Also bear in mind that a lot of modded mobs will not drop spirits from Malum. It's generally just going to be from all the different vanilla mobs. Now, once you've got some spirits and you're ready to do your first craft, the way that you're going to use this For example, if you wanted to make eroded rock, you can see it takes 16 andesite, earthen spirit, and arcane spirit. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your central item, in this case the andesite, right click it onto there. It can accept up to a full stack per slot, and it will hold on to additional items. So if you put extra spirits, that's okay. If you put extra items, that's okay. And then you're going to take your spirits and just right click these onto the side. And there we go. The items are going to come to the center. They're going to spin around for a little bit. And there we go. After a bit of time, our very first batch of eroded rock has crafted. Now, since we had extra andesite and extra spirits, it's going to go ahead and craft another batch until it runs out. So in this case, it's going to craft 4 batches. Now, you can also make what's called Hex Ash with gunpowder and some arcane spirits. And this is going to speed up the craft. So if we right-click this, you can see it starts to spin faster. And there we go. Hex Ash is especially useful if you're doing a bunch of bulk crafts. Like, for example, I use it to make, if I'm making a lot of eroded rock or twisted rock or something like that. If you're just making one of something, its effect, you're kind of wasting a lot of its effect because it can do multiple crafts per Hex Ash. And Malum adds a variety of decorative type rock. You have the eroded, the cleansed, the purified, the twisted, and the tainted. And each of them have a ton of different variations that you can create using the sawmill or through crafting recipes. Now, in order to make advanced stuff within Malum, using the Spirit Altar, for example, the Totem Base, you'll notice that it takes a central item and it takes spirits, but then it also takes some added items here. And some of the more advanced recipes can take more items. And the way that you're going to supply the Spirit Altar with those items is to take and make yourself either item pedestals or item stands. Either of these are fine. What you can do is you can right click your item. You can use them to display your items, but you can also use them to supply Spirit Altars with necessary items. And then what you're going to do is just put your item pedestals just kind of close to your Spirit Altar. We're going to put in our central item, and then we're going to put in our side items. I'm going to be doing 2 of these recipes at once. And then we're just going to add our spirits and get that crafting. And we're going to use Hex Ash on this one to show you the difference in speed. You can see it just pulled that item, boom. This one still has yet to pull the very first item. So Hex Ash speeds up crafting substantially. But once again, it's going to have more of an impact if you're crafting large batches of things like the stones and stuff. But it can still be useful just to speed up. If you have a lot of arcane spirits, it's a great use for those. Now, once you get your totem base, you'll notice that there's 5 different rites that you can do through your totem. First up, you have the Rite of Growth, which what this does is this is going to increase the growth speed of plants a few blocks away. It's about 4 blocks from the totem. You have the Rite of Death, which is going to damage any entities within a few block range from the totem. Once again, about 4 or 5 blocks. And it will also damage you, so just be aware of that. Rite of Warding is going to give you the Rite of Warding effect, which basically gives you a level of resistance as well as regeneration, and it can clear off negative effects, such as, say, poison, for example. Rite of Celerity is going to increase your movement speed, it's going to give you jump boost, and in addition, it's going to increase your reach distance by a couple blocks. And lastly, you have the Rite of Assembly. This ties into the Rune Altar, or the Rune Table, I mean, which is also crafted within the Spirit Altar. And the Rune Table is used for kind of your advanced crafts within Malum. It is a little bit longer. You can see it's a 3x1. And it does require that there is a nearby totem base with the Rite of Assembly in order for it to work. So if you take a look at the totem base, Rite of Assembly, you're going to see 4 different spirits. And that means atop the totem, you're going to need to place 4 Runewood logs in order for this to work. And you're also going to need to place the designated spirits in order. So we're going to have Eldritch, Arcane, and then 2 Aquatics. And all you do with these is you just right-click the Runewood log all the way up, and we have our Rite of Assembly set up. Now, with any rite on a totem, all you have to do is just right-click the base in order to activate it. Now, the Rite of Assembly, it's not going to do anything on its own. But if we have a recipe laid out in the Rune Table, then it'll allow the Rune Table to craft. Now, the Rune Table can be used to craft a bunch of things. A lot of these are just really helpful things, like you can make bottles of enchanting, make blaze powder, you make ender pearls. In 1.16, there are recipes for tainted rock runes and twisted rock runes. That's for the spell system for Malum, which is not currently implemented, at least at this time. So just a heads up, there are recipes in there for those, but you're probably not going to use them. But the Rune Table is also how you get Hallowed Gold, Soul Stained Steel, and Radiant Soulstones, which are kind of advanced crafting items, and you'll be needing to make these for a lot of the higher end stuff. Now, in order to do a craft, for example, if we wanted to do Radiant Soulstone, what we would do is we would take our Soulstones, put those in, our Infernal Spirits, put those in, our Diamonds, put those in, and layout is important with this. So if your recipe does not work after you've activated your Rite of Assembly, just switch the side items maybe, because it could be seeing your Rune Table as being backwards. So if you think this is the front, it may think this is the front. I've had that happen before. So if your recipe's not working, that's probably why. But then you're just going to right-click your Rite of Assembly totem. It has to be within a few blocks of your Rune Table for it to work. You can see that, yep, it didn't craft. So let me just switch these around. And now if we right-click it, and it activates, you can see that we just made 16 Radiant Soulstones. It's going to try to bulk craft as much as it possibly can that's laid out on the table. And that pretty much covers all of the crafting mechanics. Within Malum, you've got the Spirit Altar, you've got the Rune Table, you've got the Totem, and of course you're going to be gathering souls with the Scythe. Now, in addition, when it comes to gathering souls, you can also make the Sacrificial Dagger once you've progressed just a little bit. Now, the difference is the Sacrificial Dagger has a little bit higher attack speed. However, the Scythe has a big sweep, and so it can hit multiple mobs at once, whereas the Dagger is pretty much a single target weapon. A little bit faster, you can still get souls off of it, but you're not going to have the sweep effect, so it's not as good for crowd control. I prefer the Scythe, but depending, you may want the Dagger. Now, also of note, Malum adds 3 enchantments. First up, we have Haunting, which can be applied to pretty much any weapon from any mod, and it's going to make it so that the weapon is going to deal extra magic damage when you attack an enemy with it. Malum also adds Spirit Plunder, which is going to increase the amount of spirits you get whenever you kill a mob with the weapon. This really only should be enchanted onto a Scythe or a Dagger, because weapons outside of the Malum mod cannot, even with this enchantment, they cannot obtain spirits. And then in addition, there is the Rebound enchant. Now, this is just for the Scythe, and if we put this onto the Scythe, what it allows you to do is it allows you to throw your Scythe and use it kind of like a ranged weapon, and it'll come back to you. Also, Malum adds a few different decorative lights with the Brazier, the Ether, and the Ether Torch, and there is a variety of colors for each of these. Not all colors, because there isn't black or white or either of the grays, but every other color is used here. So if you want some fancy lighting, Malum does great for that as well. Malum also has spirit jars, and what they allow you to do is they allow you to store large quantities of spirits, almost in infinite quantities of spirits. You just right click those in. They can only store one type of spirit, so you can't store Eldritch alongside Arcane, for example. And then if you want to remove the spirits from it, you can either just break it to get out all of the spirits, or you can right click with an empty hand. If you do have a spirit in your hand, of course, it'll throw it back in there. But then if you have an empty hand, you can just hold right click and just pull out however many you want from it. Malum also has quite a few different baubles that you can craft and use. First up, there's 4 basic baubles. There's the Gilded Ring and the Gilded Belt. Gilded Ring giving you +2 armor, and the Gilded Belt giving you +4 armor when worn. And then there's the Ornate Ring and the Ornate Necklace. Ornate Ring giving you 2 armor toughness. Ornate Necklace giving you 4 armor toughness when worn. And then the 2 rings can be upgraded. Ornate Ring can be upgraded to the Ring of Arcane Spoil, which what the Ring of Arcane Spoil does is if you wear this one, it's going to increase the amount of spirits that you get when killing mobs. So if you're using a lot of spirits, especially for making decorative blocks, it can be extremely useful. And then the Gilded Ring can be upgraded to both the Arcane Reach Ring and the Ring of Prowess. And what Arcane Reach does, it's another extremely useful one if you're going to be farming a lot of spirits. Because by default, with Malum, you have to run over the spirits to collect them. Ring of Arcane Reach is going to act like a magnet, and it's going to just suck all the spirits nearby to you. The Ring of Prowess works a bit differently in that if you're wearing this ring, instead of getting all the different spirits when you kill mobs, the spirits that you would get will then be converted over to Confined Brilliance. Now, one thing I do want to quickly note about Confined Brilliance is it cannot be stored within a spirit jar. It does not count as a spirit, so just a heads up on that. But the Confined Brilliance is basically a method for getting bottles of enchanting from Malum. You are going to have to craft some in order to make the ring, but there is a crafting recipe for that through the Rune Table. And then lastly, there's the comically large top hat, which this is going to be a rare drop from mobs. Like, it tends to be pretty rare. Now, there's also 2 armor sets added from Malum. First up, there's the Soul Stain set, which looks like this. And it sports some basic diamond-ish level stats. Then there's the Soul Stained Stronghold set, which has extremely high stats by comparison, and it also gives you knockback immunity. And this set looks pretty stylish, if you want to see the back of it here. And it's actually one of my favorite looking sets in the more recent versions of Minecraft. And then also there is a Soul Stain set of basic tools and a sword. Nothing crazy exciting about those. And then the mod also adds 2 special swords. We have the Tyrving and the Awakened Tyrving. And as it stands right now, the Awakened Tyrving is, I believe, a little bit unfinished. Some more stuff is planned for it. But basically, it serves as a stronger version of the Tyrving. And what the Tyrving does, what it specializes at, aside from being a decent sword, based on the armor value that your opponent has, it's going to increase its damage. So heavily armored enemies are going to take more and more damage from the Tyrving and from the Awakened Tyrving. And then if you want to see the swords, the Tyrving is more like a knife, kind of, but the Awakened Tyrving is actually a pretty cool looking sword. Now next up, we'll briefly talk about automation with Malum. First up, the Spirit Altar. You can insert items into the pedestals and into the Spirit Altar itself with pretty much anything. A hopper works, nodes work, item conduits will work, any kind of item piping. It's fairly straightforward because it only has the single inventory slot that item insertion is going to see. However, when it comes to inserting spirits, you're not going to be able to use basic item transfer for that. You're going to have to use something that can simulate a right click. So a deployer or some kind of auto click or something like that in order to actually right click the spirits in. Also, when it comes to automating the Spirit Altar, make sure that you put some sort of vacuum collection system or similar, because it will kind of spew its items into the world. So Ender Hoppers, Hopper Hawks, Vacuumulators, pretty much anything that can AoE collect items, because it's going to spew them kind of in a random direction. So make sure that you can cover kind of a 3x3 or a 5x5 around the Spirit Altar. And then when it comes to automating the Rune Table, the Rune Table itself isn't too bad because everything is automatable through just basic item insertion. For the table itself, just bear in mind that when it comes to automating this, to at least test your recipes, because the table flip thing that I was talking about, you do have to be mindful of that because you might set your recipes up backwards. So just make sure and test them and make sure that the orientation is correct for the way that you have it set up. Now, as far as activating it through the totem, you will need something that can simulate a right click, because the totem base is not impacted by redstone or anything like that. So you will once again need some sort of clicker, deployer, something to that effect. And lastly, I just want to make a mention that the spirit jars from Malum, unfortunately, do not interact with item insertion. However, there are spirit pipes planned. I think they're actually out maybe in the new version, which is 1.18. However, in the 1.16 version, they don't currently work and they are not craftable. But what they're intended to do is plug into spirit jars and they'll allow for spirits to be automatically fed into like the spirit altar. From spirit jars, they'll be able to supply spirits from connected spirit jars to things that use the spirits. But like I said, as far as 1.16 goes, they're not currently implemented as of right now. And that pretty much wraps up the Malum mod. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you did, as always, be sure and hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe if you're not already, just to update with when new videos come out. And as a quick side note, I'm planning to do quite a few tutorials like this, maybe one per week or something like that, to kind of showcase some of the newer 1.16 mods, and also do it in kind of a rapid fire, quickly move through all the different items and mechanics, and then also spend a little bit of time discussing automation related to that mod. So something that I had been planning on doing and just kind of finding the time to get started and get it rolling. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope to see you guys next time. Until then, as always, do take care, stay safe. I'll see you guys then.